Real quick, this video is sponsored by Day of Apotheosis, a story-rich RPG I developed. The premise is that this unstoppable demon comes to a small village and begins killing people. You have to do side quests to grow strong enough to defeat the demon, but the longer you spend training, the more people die. The game is pay what you want on itch.io, link in the description. Fun fact, the core concept of the game, this idea of there being an inevitable, inescapable, unwinnable fight that you have been forced by destiny to deal with, came to me while I was rereading Homestuck. Anyway, now for the video. Life sucks sometimes, you know? Bad things happen, and there is nothing you can do about it. People die, things go wrong, and sometimes all you can do is despair about the inevitability of pain. Imagine if you could take all that pain away. Imagine if you could make it so you never had to experience the worst day of your life. That would be nice, right? Except, if you did that, would you still be you? I think Terezi Pyrope is my favorite Homestuck character, in addition to being one of my favorite fictional characters, period. In my previous Homestuck essays, I've talked a lot about the development of John, Dave, and Vriska. I've talked about Terezi's coin flip, the retcon, and John and Terezi's messages in the Epilogues, but I've never sat down and fully explained why Terezi is the greatest Homestuck character, bar none. And I think if you understand Terezi as a character, and understand how some of the more divisive elements of the comic are tied into her character arc, you get a better appreciation of Homestuck as a whole. The first hint of the trolls comes in the middle of Act 3, when some jerk named Carcinogeneticist warns Jade that today is the day she fucks everything up. A few hundred pages later, another troll, Audius Torador, tries to harass Dave and is humiliated in a match of verbal judo. A third, Legislacerator, explains to Rose that they are aliens who exist outside the kid's timeline. It's actually really interesting rereading Homestuck to see how much was laid out in advance. During the troll appearances in Act 3, you can see on the computer screen a list of names belonging to all 12 trolls, hundreds of pages before some of them were properly introduced. Some of the names are a bit odd, like apparently Vriska had been trolling Jade. Anyway, it is from Dave's message list that we first see a name that the comic will soon become very familiar with. Gallows Calibrator. We got our first glimpse of the trolls physically at the end of the intermission, and then, in Act 4, the goat finally makes her debut, sporting a cyan Libra symbol. She explains that, unlike the others who want to harass the kids, she's realized that it'll be mutually beneficial to help them succeed. Also, she plans to stay linear because time bullshit is stupid and pointless. Terezi explains similar to Rose, then we get a flashback of her trolling John by laughing at him. John laughs back, and she calls him a monster for laughing at a blind girl and threatens to kill him. Top tier trolling, which is followed by Terezi's first physical appearance. Terezi decides to help John sequence break the game, even though her Trollian window shows it won't work, to see what happens when you fuck with time. She gives John a jetpack to skip to his fight with Typhoeus, and John is killed instantly. Oops. Mr. Orange Creamsicles travels back in time and saves John. He explains that, instead of tricking time, Terezi just made a shitty branch timeline. She replies with some shitty edited Captain Planet screen grabs. This isn't the last time Terezi's choices will result in someone's death. Andrew Hussey was fond of plot points that parallel each other. You notice more parallels every time you reread Homestuck. A few thousand pages later, the comic returns to a very similar scene, of Terezi sending John to Typhoeus, using him as a cudgel to cheat the game and break time. But before we can talk about that moment, we need to talk about the choice that defines Terezi's life, and before we can talk about that choice, we need to go back to Alternia. Act 5, Act 1, Mobius Double Reach Around properly introduces all 12 trolls. It shows them entering the medium and winning the game, but that isn't what it's about. Not really. It's about Vriska and this vicious, bloody feud between her and her old friends. We see via various flashbacks that Terezi's closest childhood friend was Vriska Circuit. They went on adventures together, calling themselves the Scourge Sisters. Terezi fancied herself a vigilante, dispensing justice to evildoers. Vriska just saw this as a way to find food for her spider mom. During a game of Flarp with Tavros and Aradia, Vriska does what Vriska always does and takes things too far. She summons monsters too powerful for Tavros to fight and forces him to the edge of a cliff. Tavros asks Aradia and Terezi for help, but Doc Scratch keeps them from intervening. Tavros tries to quit, and Vriska forces him to jump off a cliff, paralyzing him. Radia, disgusted by this and all of the murders Vriska carried out for her mother, raises the spirits of those Vriska has killed and has them torment her. She hopes this will make Vriska feel remorse. Vriska panics. Dog Scratch pops up and tells her to kill Radia. Vriska follows his advice, forcing Radia's boyfriend Solix to do the deed. Terezi decides her friend has gone too far. She gives Vriska a chance to change her mind and say she's sorry. When Vriska refuses, Terezi rats her out to Mr. Vanilla Milkshake, who blows Vriska up, costing her an arm and an eye in the process. Vriska retaliates by mind-controlling Tavros into mind-controlling Terezi's Lucis, into mind-controlling Terezi, into staring at the sun, blinding her. Afterward, Vriska and Terezi agree to a truce and stop spending time with each other. Back in the present, Terezi is the third troll to be properly introduced. She lives in this treehouse with walls covered in various rainbow decorations and chalk drawings. We see Terezi LARP a courtroom drama. She takes the role of prosecutor, or as the trolls call it, a Legislacerator. Trolls don't have defense attorneys because Alternia is Dick Wolf's wet dream. Terezi interrogates stuffed animal, Senator Lemon Snout, accusing it of murdering another stuffed animal. After winning this trial that, as a reminder, she is conducting with herself, Terezi pulls out a two-face-ass coin and flips it. Heads, Lemon Snout lives. Scratch, he dies. The coin comes up heads, and Lemon Snout sighs in relief. Terezi asks why, and the senator explains that the coin has exonerated him. What coin? Terezi asks. Before hanging the stuffed animal, she doesn't see any coin because she's blind. Then Terezi licks away the chalk drawing of the judge because she is very, very weird. Like, God, she is just so weird. She eats chalk, is obsessed with bright colors, and constantly roleplays murder trials. I struggle to think of a single scene of Terezi that isn't an absolute delight because she is just so goddamn weird. When the meteors start falling, Terezi helps lead the red team and get her friends into the game. Vriska contacts her, asking if they can put everything behind them. She downplays her own actions and complains about Terezi refusing to forgive her. When that fails, she insists that Terezi is just like her, a killer. She says that one day Terezi's going to do something terrible to somebody and wish she could take it back, but she won't be able to. Then, Terezi will see how hard it is to win back someone's trust. Vriska is fond of microaggressions, and unfortunately for her, Radia is fond of making her pay. TLDR, the trolls beat the game. As they are on the precipice of victory, a rift forms, unleashing a monster on the trolls. Jack Noir, not the one Terezi helped defeat, a new incarnation from the world they just created, more powerful than they could imagine. The trolls hide in the meteor base. Terezi receives a bunch of money from Dave, one of the human players, and decides to watch his life and begin trolling. At first she's off-putting, popping up after Dave has to dispose of his own corpse to ask him what human blood tastes like. But then she starts sending him poorly edited cool kid drawings and they become best friends. She guides him through fun quests like being made into soup, committing insider trading, and breaking the legendary piece of shit, all the while razzing each other and sharing shitty comics. I genuinely considered making this the thumbnail. Homestuck is a comic with excellent dialogue. It's what makes the fact that there's a million fucking words of this comic bearable, and Terezi's conversations with Dave do an excellent job establishing her as a character. She's weird, she's kinda mean, she's always fucking with Dave, but she also genuinely sees him as a friend and enjoys screwing around with him. Partway through Dave's journey, Terezi does something really fucked up. She uses a coin flip to create a timeline split, then tries to convince Dave to kill the doomed alternate timeline version of himself. It's worth knowing that the coin flip doesn't actually create the timeline split. Terezi doesn't even look at the coin. What causes the split is Dave being forced to pick good head or scratched head. The choice is what decides his fate. Anyway, Dave refuses to kill himself. He doesn't see his alternate versions as disposable and can't bring himself to do the deed. Terezi and Dave have a conversation about Terezi's mind powers, about how she can see the outcomes of the choices people make. She says that it's her job to bring about retribution to her enemies and to keep her friends out of trouble. She also tells Dave that, although luck exists, it doesn't actually matter. Terezi feels bad about having sentenced Kiwi Dave to a doomed existence. She cries and runs off to be alone. Then Tavros' body crashes down in front of her. Terezi tries to revive him via corpse smooch, but it's pointless. A crime has been committed, and when crime strikes, there is justice to be done. There is no doubt in Terezi's mind that Vriska is responsible, and as a Legislacerator, it is now Terezi's job to execute her for this heinous act she has committed. Also, Terezi arranges her stuffed dragons to be around the corpse while she does forensic analysis because she is weird and does not treat serious things with the seriousness they deserve. Terezi quickly finds more bodies and assumes they are also Vriska's victims. Actually, Tavros was Vriska's only victim. Only victim that night. Vriska had a lot of other victims earlier, including Tavros. The point is, the other bodies are Eridan and Gamzee's fault because they were rude and didn't space out their murders to keep from overlapping. Terezi messages Dave because she needs to talk to a friend. He's dealing with his grief over the death of his brother, and acrobatic pirouettes off the handle, something someone should really make a video about. The aimless renegade gives Dave commands, ordering him to step up and fight evil. Jack's atrocities must be punished. He must pay. Terezi is excited to hear Dave talk about justice, but Dave is confused about the words coming out of his mouth. Terezi opens up about her own justice problem. Vriska. She talks about the Legislacerators of Alternia, who hunted criminals motivated not by personal feelings or vendettas, but because it was their duty. She says she is the only one who understands how to handle Vriska. It's Terezi's responsibility to take Vriska down, not just because she's the worst, but because Terezi knows that Vriska will lead Jack back to the meteor base, causing everyone to die. Except, as Terezi admits to Dave, she isn't sure she'll be able to kill Vriska. As Terezi is going to fight Vriska, Gamzee tampers with the crime scene and gives Terezi a piece of Mindfang's journal. Through this journal, the reader learns about the ancestors of the trolls, and how their actions are paralleled in the present day. Vriska's ancestor, Marquis Spinneret Mindfang, was an infamous pirate. Terezi's ancestor, Neophyte Redglare, was a Legislacerator and Mindfang's greatest rival. She burned Mindfang's fleet with her dragon, cut off her arm, and dragged her to the court to face justice. But Mindfang used her mind control to seize the minds of the court, forcing them to attack and hang Redglare. In her journal, Mindfang notes that she and Redglare could have been great friends, if only Redglare had discarded her childish preoccupation with justice. Vriska loves Mindfang's journal. She sees herself as Mindfang, this unstoppable main character. And for what it's worth, Terezi embraces her ties to Redglare. She dons her old Flarp costume, a recreation of Redglare's outfit, and climbs to the roof, carrying her sword and a stuffed animal. On one hand, this is her cosplaying Redglare, who also had a cool giant dragon, but also, can we acknowledge how incredibly childish this is? Because it is. She's clutching her stuffed animal as she heads towards a fight to the death, because Terezi is 13. It's easy to forget sometimes, but the main characters in Homestuck are just kids, forced into terrible situations. Vriska is waiting for Terezi. She treats everything like a big joke, but Terezi says it's serious. She brought her cool coin and everything. She says she's not there for revenge, but for justice for Vriska's murders. Vriska counters that she only murdered one person. Terezi facepalms because that's a terrible defense. And also, no, you didn't just murder Tavros, you also murdered Aradia. How did you forget that you murdered Aradia? Actually, now that I think about it, Vriska also murdered John and Dave and is partially responsible for most of Jack's murders. The point is, Vriska sucks. Terezi says Vriska can't beat Jack. She's seen the future, the consequences of Vriska trying to fight him, and they are dire. She offers Vriska a gamble. She flips her coin. Heads you stay, scratch you go. Vriska laughs at this because she can control luck. Except, Terezi has already made it clear that luck doesn't matter. She flips the coin, and reality breaks down because Terezi had the bright idea of trying to play the CD that all of reality is stored within on a record player. The disc scratches, and a Scratch Doctor seizes control of the narration. Scratch narrates as Vriska uses her light powers, forcing the coin to come up Scratch. Terezi raises her blade, and Scratch explains the true meaning of her words. When she said go, Terezi didn't mean Vriska would leave. She meant Vriska would die. Vriska understands this, understands that Terezi plans to stab her in the back. Vriska is gambling not on the coin flip, but on Terezi not having the courage to do what needs to be done. And Vriska is right. Terezi lets her fly away. Vriska flies to Jack, leaving a trail of stardust behind her. Jack follows the trail back to the meteor base. He murders Karkat and Terezi. He brings their corpses back to taunt Vriska. Vriska attacks Jack, channeling every bit of god power she can muster, clad in Mindfang's clothes. Scratch says that Vriska could win, but it doesn't matter. The comic zooms out. revealing that none of this is actually happening. It's a vision the future Terezi sees, and it's a future that cannot be allowed to come to pass. Victory doesn't matter in reality where all else is doomed to fail. Terezi stabs Vriska, and it is just. There's some dramatic irony in Vriska's death, because she was actually starting to become a better person. Vriska regrets killing Tavros. She feels bad about the things she's done, and wants to try to make them right. The problem is, because she's so goddamn arrogant, the only way she can see to make things right is by fighting Jack. She ruined everything out of her desire to be the main character, this big hero that everything revolves around. Fighting Jack is just Vriska doing what she always does, making everything about her. She wants to be a hero because she thinks that'll wipe away her misdeeds and allow her to feel good about herself, but she doesn't understand what being heroic even means. I love Vriska's final conversation with John, which is shown while both of them are dead from stabs to the back, waiting for their judgment to come. Vriska says she wants to meet John, put her past behind her, finally be a better person, but she doesn't get that chance because Terezi was forced to make the hard choice and put Vriska down. And this choice destroys her. She spends the rest of the comic miserable. It's just like Vriska said. She has done something terrible she wishes she could take back, but she can't. After Cascade, Dave and Rose join the remaining trolls and spend 3 years traveling to the new session. Dave and Karkat get into a love triangle and fight over Terezi, which is a funny scene, but also, and I say this as someone who used to love Karkat and Terezi as a ship, probably means Karkat and Terezi shouldn't end up together. Instead, Terezi spends her meteor trip with, oh god, no, anything but that! The meteor passes through a dream bubble, and Terezi finds herself back at her hive. She relives a conversation with Vriska from the height of their feud. Vriska mocks Terezi for being blind and tries to downplay her crimes. Terezi calls Vriska a crazy bitch, and Vriska's demeanor changes. She tells Terezi that she's the one who invoked the memory, made the dream bubble take her back to the day she blew Vriska up so Terezi could say she was sorry. Terezi notices Vriska is acting off, and Vriska drops the act. It's actually Aranea of the Dancestors, who's like Vriska but italicized. I was going to say Vriska but nicer, but she isn't. Not really. Aranea tells Terezi that she wants to help save the troll race, and that if Terezi is going to do that, Terezi needs to heal. Her old wounds and old regrets will serve no purpose on the rest of her journey. Aranea asks what Terezi wants to say to Vriska. Terezi admits that she wishes Vriska wasn't dead. Even though she did nothing but cause problems, Vriska was Terezi's friend. Terezi says that she keeps wondering if there was another way, but she can't remember any other possibility. But maybe there was a choice she could have made before, something in the lead-up, some way to avoid painting herself into that corner. Terezi says she wishes she could tell this to Vriska. Aranea says it's understandable for Terezi to feel regret, but what's done is done. Vriska is gone, and Terezi is alive. Now what? Terezi can try to rationalize things or renounce her responsibility for what happened, but that won't fix anything. What Terezi needs is to heal, to move past her feelings of guilt, Aranea says. She offers to literally heal Terezi, curing her blindness, but Terezi says no. For now, at least. Anyway, Terezi starts having a black rom thing with Gamzee. As the 3-year journey is about to end, Karkat finds her passed out, drunk off Faygo. Sugary soda is troll booze, as a reminder. Karkat and Dave argue if Terezi needs an intervention. So I don't get troll romance. It's deliberately designed to be alien and confusing, but I think this relationship is unhealthy. Later in the epilogues, Terezi explains how kismessitudes are supposed to work, that they're supposed to be playful and centered on mutual respect. Terezi hated Vriska, but she also loved Vriska and definitely respected her. Terezi does not respect Gamzee, because why the fuck would anyone ever respect Gamzee Makara? Terezi calls her relationship with Gamzee the worst thing that ever happened to her, and is ashamed of dating him, but she keeps coming back, keeps letting him insult and hit her, keeps drinking with him until she passes out. She stops functioning as a person. She says she's addicted, but I wonder if it's more than that. I think it's likely that Terezi is staying in an abusive relationship that makes her miserable because she thinks it's what she deserves. Karkat wakes Terezi up with a horn, and it's revealed that Terezi can see thanks to Aranea. Terezi regrets restoring her sight, because being blind was such a core part of who she was. She says that she considered blinding herself again, but the way she was originally blinded was special, and she can't duplicate that. She later explains that curing her blindness broke her weird color candy synesthesia thing, and that everything now looks disgusting to her. This is a theme with Terezi that shows up again and again. She understands that the pain and scars of your past are important because they're what makes you, you. Karkat says she needs to get over her soda drinking problem because they need her for what's coming. Terezi shrugs this off, saying her powers aren't valuable. They deluded her into thinking she was in control of other people's fates when she wasn't even in control of her own. The only heroic thing she ever did with her powers was use them to justify killing her friend. Terezi questions if she's being cosmically punished or if she's punishing herself for what happened to Vriska. Karkat says that killing Vriska was necessary. It was demanded by Paradox Space. Paradox Space makes your mistakes vital. Scars in space-time that serve to remind you that the perfect version of yourself you wish you could be can never exist. If Terezi didn't kill Vriska, she would have withered away in a doomed timeline. Terezi says that sometimes she wishes she had. She would rather be the person who made the right decision and faded away forever than the person who killed Vriska. At the start of Part 4, Terezi and Rose are teleported to the Land of Light and Rain, which is the absolutely worst place to be given their respective hangovers. She makes herself a blindfold and decides to go clown hunting. She jumps into the clusterfuck on Lofaf when Gamzee, under Arenea's mind control, is attacking Jane and kicks him in the head. She pulls her sword out and says she'll make Gamzee face justice for his crime of making her feel like rancid circus trash. She starts stabbing Gamzee, but he refuses to fight back. He just stands there and smiles because of Arenea's control. Dirk's heart lightning breaks this control, and Gamzee tells Terezi to stop because she's hurting him. She drops her sword and says she's sorry. Then Gamzee shouts honk and attacks her. He beats Terezi to a bloody pulp. Karkat rushes in to save her, but Gamzee stabs him in the chest and throws him into lava. Kanaya cuts Gamzee in half, but is then vaporized by the condens. And don't worry, they aren't the only ones to die. Jade, Dave, Jake, Jane, and Aranea also get obliterated. John flies through the endless sea of destruction he was unable to stop. Dirk gives up, allows the stardust to consume him, tearing him apart atom by atom until he is unrecognizable. Rose dies in Roxy's arms, after finally admitting she loved her mother. Roxy and John sit down to talk, and John says that he's sick of getting painted into a corner of yet another unwinnable situation. Death and tragedy keep happening, and he doesn't know how to stop it. Roxy suggests letting go and fading into nothingness, because everything has gone wrong. This is the end of the road. The life they always wanted with the people they wanted to be with was never going to happen. Then Terezi crashes down in front of them and limps forward, covering her stab wound with her hand. She marches up to John, headbutts him, points down at him, and says 2 words. Fix this! Everyone else has given up, and Terezi may have more blood on her shirt than in her veins, but fuck it. She refuses to let this be the end. Also, because she's Terezi, she stole Jade's sparkly shoes from her corpse. John says that all the troll girls are weird and that all the troll boys are weenies. Except Karkat, may he rest in peace. Terezi snaps that Karkat isn't dead. Not yet. Or, at least, it doesn't have to be. They're going to revisit an old idea that fucked things up horribly the last time Terezi tried it. John is going to, with her help, break time. And this time, it is going to work. She sends John back to Typheus. This time, he survives. He masters his powers and plays the wind. He returns to Terezi, guided by her mind powers, honing in on her thoughts like a beacon. Terezi writes out a list of instructions on her scarf, using her own blood. She draws out a chalk outline on the ground and tells John good luck. Not that he'll need it, because we make our own luck. He's about to prove that. Terezi collapses into her chalk outline and dies. John calls Terezi weird one last time and sets out to save everybody. He travels throughout Terezi's life, fixing her mistakes, and only her mistakes. Terezi would feel like a hypocrite for fixing anyone else's mistake. For instance, she has John fix the oh-so-pressing issue of her stuffed animal being hanged for the murder he committed. John leaves it at the crime scene, which distracts Terezi when she's about to kiss Tavros' corpse. John speculates Terezi is trolling him, or maybe trolling herself, and honestly, she might be. But there might be a deeper meaning. Senator Lemonsnout was forced to kill the Green Witness. He had no choice in it. It was the will of Terezi. And because of this narrative force upon him, Lemonsnout was executed. I mean, it's a doll, but you see the parallels, right? Terezi is symbolically sending a message to herself that the predestined deaths don't have to happen. The Lemonsnout can live instead of being killed after an ignored coin flip. It isn't about the stupid doll. It's about Vriska. It's about Terezi finding a way to end things without killing her. Terezi also has John steal the Ring of Life, right? You don't need him on a wall to solve her relationship issues and help your younger self realize Gamzee killed Nepeta. Then, it's time for the big one. John travels back to the coin flip, and he knocks Vriska out before Terezi can kill her. Terezi's greatest regret has been undone. And now, she's back! God help us! The retcon is a very, very contentious plot point, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't messy. It causes around a third of the comic to flat out not matter for half a dozen characters, and I mean, to be fair, they spent that time in the back seat. Most of the Meteor Crew's key moments of character development happens either before the end of Cascade or after the retcon, but it does make parts of the comic feel kinda pointless. But what it gives us is this incredible, character-defining development for the survivors. John playing the wind, mastering his powers, it's an amazing moment. Terezi taking charge, using her dying breaths to find a way to save everyone, then dying in a chalk outline, is one of the best moments in the entire comic. Fix This is a contender for the absolute best chapter in the entire comic, and it needs to be said that the retcon is Homestuck at its Homestuckest. Only Homestuck could do something so weird, play around with the medium of a webcomic and the nature of storytelling in such a way. The retcon has grown on me over time, and especially while writing this video. I think it's best to look at it not from a Doyleist perspective, but from a Watsonian one, treated not as a decision by the author, but a decision by Terezi. Because this was Terezi's choice. She engineered the retcon. She could have just had John go a little bit back, just stop Aranea, but that isn't what she wanted. During the back half of the comic, Terezi is defined by her guilt over killing Vriska. She regrets it every second of every day. She torments herself via Juggalo, drinks till she passes out, fixes her blindness, all because she thinks she deserves to suffer because of the horrible thing she was forced to do. And in the comic's darkest hour, Terezi chooses to be selfish. She chooses to use it as a chance to fix her mistakes. Not just with Vriska, she also stops herself from dating Gamzee or kissing Tavros' corpse, but saving Vriska is the main fix. And to be clear, there are consequences to this choice. Terezi turned herself into a doomed timeline double. She knows that by saving Vriska, by making Vriska's survival critical to the new Alpha timeline, she must die. She must fade away in the dream bubbles. But that's okay. She'd rather fade away than be the person who killed Vriska. In the new canon timeline, Vriska fixes everything. She deals with Gamzee, keeps Rose from becoming an alcoholic, and stops the Condens's plans before they can even begin. Vriska takes over as leader and guides the group as they prepare for the final battle. The new Terezi stands by her side, noticeably a lot less confident than she used to be. She says that she's nervous, that she won't actually be capable of helping anyone during the fight. The other Terezi figured out how to be awesome and heroic because of the things she went through, but she didn't go through those things. New Terezi says she feels guilty because her other self sacrificed herself to make things better for her, to let her lead a better life, but Terezi doesn't feel fixed. She feels pressure to be the best version of herself, but she definitely isn't. But at least she still has Vriska. Then Vriska leaves to go yell at her other self and fight a big ugly skull douchebag. She does not return. Vriska ditches Terezi, and Terezi never sees her again. I mean, she was planning to come back, but she doesn't. Vriska is too busy being the hero fighting the big bad endgame because Terezi guaranteed this was a Vriska who never learned that making everything about yourself is different from being a hero. As Terezi is flying off to fight the Jacks, she messages Vriska. Vriska doesn't pick up. Maybe that's for the best. She says that Vriska always had this certainty, a lack of fear over the consequences of her actions, and refusal to have trouble saying what was on her mind, that Terezi lacked. Terezi says she needed Vriska's certainty, to let her know that it's possible to feel that way. She calls herself weak for needing Vriska, says Vriska probably sees her as tragic. Terezi admits that she doesn't feel whole inside, and probably never will. Winning, creating a new universe, it won't fix her. Nothing will, because there is too little substance in her to even be fixed. She knows that in another reality, she was more. She made mistakes, she made sacrifices, she did these big, heroic things to save everyone. She learned what she was capable of, but that wasn't her. She doesn't remember what happened in the coin flip, or after game over, because that was another Terezi. This is the consequence of the retcon. This is the consequence of Terezi throwing away all of her pain and all of her regrets. She is forced to live knowing that she could have been something different, knowing that a piece of her is missing. She wonders if she could just remember, then maybe she wouldn't feel so empty. And then, Terezi remembers. She reaches out with her mind powers and inherits the memories of another timeline. At the same time, Vriska remembers. The other Vriska. The parenthetical one who Terezi killed, who slowly but surely grew as a person. She walks through the dream bubbles and she thinks back to the happiest moments of her life. The time she spent with Terezi. Being kids, dressing up in costumes, running around, going on adventures, this is what mattered to her. Meanwhile, the original Terezi wakes up in the dream bubbles. We see as everyone from the game over timeline wakes up and moves on to the afterlife, seeing the people they cared about, the people they wish they could have saved. As reality cracks under the stress of Lord English's attacks, the Scourge sisters remember. They find each other in the darkness, and they hold each other as they stare at the shattered sky. The dream bubbles are dying. They won't be together for long, but for just a moment, Terezi and Vriska are together. And they are happy. What a beautiful ending. Such an amazing character. Except, what about the other Terezi? The one who is still alive? She got the memory, she learned that another version of Terezi was happy, but she ain't that Terezi. This version of Terezi fights the Jacks, she creates a new world, but at the end of the comic, when everyone else is happy together on Earthsea, do you know who is missing? Terezi. Because she isn't happy. During the credits, we see that Terezi did follow the others to Earthsea, but she left some time before John's 18th birthday to go find Vriska. John messages Terezi, asking how it's going out there. We see Terezi flying near the event horizon of the black hole, watching as ghosts and the crumpled remains of space-time are sucked in, searching through the wreckage for Vriska. And that is where the comic leaves Terezi. It is, in some ways, unsatisfying, but at the same time, Terezi ended the comic unsatisfied. She has left paradise, left a world where she was worshipped as a god, and ventured into danger for a chance to see Vriska again. If not for love, then for closure. Hey look, there's still another 8 minutes 27 seconds left in the video. That's weird. I wonder what we're going to be discussing now. Oh yay, the Epilogues! My favorite Homestuck continuation. That sounded like sarcasm, but genuinely the Epilogues are the best continuation of Homestuck. And as you'll learn in a few minutes, I am very qualified to make that claim. I made a whole 3-hour video on why they're actually good. You should watch it, or maybe you've already watched it, who knows, I don't. At the start of Candy, after Calliope convinces John to set Gamzee free and Gamzee goes through his dumb fucking redemption arc, John messages the only person in the universe who can truly understand what he's going through right now, Terezi. Side note, that's an error that the narrator made. Terezi is not the only person in the universe who can understand, because she isn't in the universe. That's why Terezi can understand, because she's still in paradox space, and thus unaffected by reality unraveling. They talk shit about Gamzee, and Terezi tells John to kick Gamzee in the codpiece. John asks how she's doing, and Terezi says she's still searching for Vriska. John says that everyone misses her. He messages her again during his coffee shop date and after his wedding. They make fun of their friends' terrible relationships. Terezi explains that a kismessitude isn't just supposed to make you annoyed or angry. It's supposed to push you to better yourself, shine a light on the things about yourself you would otherwise ignore or deny. John asks if that's why she's so determined to find Vriska. Terezi says, it's complicated. Things were always so dramatic with Vriska. She says that if she were to have another relationship, it would have to be different. Less blinding each other, more lighthearted teasing. John's life spirals out of control throughout Candy. At the start, Rose tells him that everyone is going to change as the world becomes non-canon. That John will be left an unaffected witness to the dissipation. John watches as the people he loves become unrecognizable. But Terezi stays the same, the last remnant of what he used to have. John starts putting her on a pedestal, treating her as the only person he cares about because he knows she's real. And Terezi starts to feel the same way about John. He's the only one she can talk to, the only other person who felt empty living on Earthsea. John's missing something, the same as Terezi. He had this big destiny the story was building to, and he abandoned it. And now he is depressed and alone, floating aimlessly without purpose. It makes sense that Terezi relates to him. As his life is falling apart, John is called by Terezi. She tells him she's dying. She's been searching for years and she's starving. She can't remember anyone's voice but her own. She wonders, just as John does, if any of this is even real. John asks when she's going to give up and accept that Vriska is dead, that none of them are ever going to see her again. He says that even if Terezi found Vriska, it wouldn't matter because she doesn't deserve Terezi's friendship. If she cared as much as Terezi, she wouldn't have fucked off forever at the end of the comic. She would have given Terezi closure. John asks her to come home, but Terezi says that Earthsea isn't her home. She doesn't have a home. Terezi explains that for a long time, she's felt like there was something wrong with her. She's missing something important, the thing that everyone else has that allows them to be satisfied with the way things are. There's a huge void in her heart and she'll never have what she needs to be happy. She retconned away a huge chunk of her soul. She erased her regret and her grief, and now she can't stop chasing after what she lost. Maybe the retcon was necessary to save everyone else, but it didn't save her. John says that the only thing left to do is let Vriska go, but Terezi can't. Not even when she's on death's door. She says that she's going to go to sleep, and that it would almost be a relief if she didn't wake up. John asks why she called him. She says she wanted to give him the courtesy of closure. This is the last time Terezi appears in Candy. She also shows up in Meat, which takes place later from her perspective. Terezi wasn't duplicated by the timeline split because she wasn't on Earthsea when it happened, so there's just one Terezi. Anyway, she runs into John, not the John who she was talking to, a different timeline version of John, who's bleeding out from a chest wound following his fight with Lord English. They lie down together in the back of John's dad's car. John says that they should go back to Earthsea, but Terezi asks to stay just a little longer. Terezi, even when dying, is super fucking weird, so she eats shaving cream and steals Jade's corpse's shoes again. John tells her about the original timeline, how amazing Terezi was. She says she remembers, and that's why she's out there. Pre-retcon Terezi missed Vriska so much, it was like there was a hole in her heart. New Terezi remembers how happy she felt when she found Vriska as they stared up at the shattered sky. And since then, she spent her life devoted to that memory. The idea that she and Vriska are meant to be with each other, and for what? Vriska is a huge bitch. John again suggests leaving, but Terezi asks to stay just a little longer. Instead of leaving, she cuts the tooth out of his belly. And then they fuck! Afterwards, Terezi finally decides to give up on Vriska. She says this like someone announcing they've lost their faith in God. John asks her to come home with him, but he's tired. He's so tired. He's dying. He's been dying ever since he made his choice. He just didn't realize it until now. He takes her back to Earthsea using the last of his strength. John starts to confess his feelings, and Terezi forbids him from dying in the middle of a love confession. And then John dies in the middle of a love confession. At that point, Dirk comes to Terezi and asks her to join him in his megalomaniacal quest to restart the comic, speaking into her mind through his narrator powers. He says that she'll never be happy on Earthsea because it isn't a place for people like them. She leaves with Dirk, and at the moment, that's where her character rests. He's asked her to act as the judge for him and Rose's game. She's carrying Meat John's body with her in the wallet, planning to revive him. Right now, she's back in a rut, depressed and aimless, again trying to undo her mistakes and bring back someone she cared about. She's planning to betray Dirk eventually, something he is well aware of. Time will see if she goes through with it. That's the story of Terezi Pyrope. I don't know how it will end. Maybe Beyond Canon will give a satisfying ending to the character. Or maybe Terezi is the type of character who can't have a satisfying ending. Can't end things in a neat bow without any regrets. Maybe when it all ends, she'll still be alone and regretful. Still be missing that piece of herself she gave up for Vriska. Or maybe she'll find Vriska again. Maybe Vriska will grow and they'll find closure. I don't know. I can't see the future.